go. Good morning. Welcome to Unity South Central Region's Business Mastermind. I'm Ariana Platten. I am thrilled to do this class this week. This class is a little bit outside of what we usually talk about. Usually we talk about kind of the practicalities of the kinds of business experiences that we have in our regular spiritual center setting. And there's a lot of information. Just as a reminder, we have 3 years of archived information on the Unity South Central Region Business Mastermind page. So if you go to our website, which is unitysouthcentral.org, if you go to the website and you go all the way across, I think it's resources, click down and it'll say Business Mastermind. Go to that page and scroll all the way to the bottom of the page. You will come to the archives for this year and then to the archives for the years before. And there is so much stuff in there, so many different kinds of things. And we put that all together, not only so that you can refer back to it, but also so that there is an opportunity for you to share things with your board that might be important. Even though, good morning, Trish, even though the classes are aimed at ministers, a lot of the topics are ministry-wide and helpful for your board and sometimes helpful for volunteer teams or staff, things like that. So just remember that those archives are there and you can go to them anytime. And also remember that Unity has agreed to give us our CEUs for those classes, which means if you are short on training, you can jump into the archives, watch a couple of classes, and have what you need for your annual report. So all that stuff is there. This year, when I talked to folks who had been doing this with me for a couple of years, we decided to step a little more into innovation, to look at some things that we hadn't looked at. And this particular subject is one of those. And I'm excited to talk about it because it's something we don't look at and something that I think is going to be helpful for us in thinking about how we interact with the people in our communities who are doing spiritual work. And I'm going to tell you before we kind of jump into this, I think this is really important for lots and lots of reasons. I also understand that we have some risks with it. One of the risks that we have is making sure that we are very careful how we endorse people. That when we speak to or interact from an awareness about those people in our spiritual centers who are doing spiritual work, we want to make sure that we are careful to say, we never endorse anyone. We don't, because as a spiritual center, it's a good idea not to endorse. That isn't to say that we have wonderful, wonderful people offering wonderful services, but we are careful about that for lots of reasons. And between us here in this room today, we also have to keep in mind that we are most of us using the nonprofit that belongs to Unity, to the bigger Unity picture. And we're always in a position to protect that nonprofit. We're always keeping that in mind and making sure that we're careful about how we use the nonprofit and don't get ourselves in trouble, because it can inadvertently get other people in trouble, and we don't want to do that. So what are marketplace mystics? The symbol of that is your marketplace mystics are the people in your spiritual community who are already teaching from intuition. They may be offering classes at your center or in other places. They are artists in your center who are doing shows in your community whose art reflects your spiritual nature. They are ethical accountants who are very clear about the way they do accounting and very clear about the way they teach use of money. They are nurses who live into new compassion systems. Maybe they're using Reiki, maybe they're using healing touch other things that nurses are allowed to use now. But there are people in our community who are doing things in the way that we hope they do after they're part of our community. They're parents who are building conscious families and creatives in our community who are leading purpose-driven efforts in the business world. You probably can think of one or two of those on your own. One or two of those people in your community, maybe you can think of a whole handful depending on the size of your community. But generally, as a rule, we don't interact much with them. We know that they're doing what they do. Maybe they're leading, like oftentimes you'll have a Reiki group or a healing group, somebody who's stepped into a volunteer position to help in your community, but we're not really blending or thinking about bringing together the business aspects of that with our business, with our work in the world. And I want to just give you the opportunity to think about that, to just consider whether or not there are people in your community whose work is helping to do in the world what your mission says you're doing. Because if so, there are collaborative opportunities for you. And those collaborative opportunities can both bring your message out into the world and also help to reinforce a healthy financial picture for your business, because as for your spiritual business, because as people collaborate, things shift financially. And I want to talk to you about collaboration. Collaboration is, for most people who are working out in the spiritual world right now, has replaced the word competition. Right now, in a healthy, growing world, spiritual people are collaborating rather than competing with one another, because that's how it works. We're collaborating in our social media posts. We're collaborating in our marketing efforts. We're collaborating by bringing together businesses that do different things and are in alignment with one another. We're collaborating in ways that grow everybody. And it's important for us to think about that, because we're kind of a silo, you know. We're spiritual centers. We're Unity spiritual centers. This is what we do. But our work is far-reaching. And our goals, when it comes to our missions and the work that we're doing out in the world, our objective is to have a bigger influence than what happens in our walls. Our objective is that what we're teaching extends outward, and that the world begins to join us, begins to come in. So this is one of the ways that we can think about that. So who are the marketplace mystics in that you want to identify? They are people who are integrating spirituality with livelihood, which, if you think about it, is exactly what you do. You are integrating spirituality with livelihood. They are people who see business as sacred exchange. And oftentimes they're people who volunteer services as well as pay for services. They can be sound healers, they can be Reiki masters, they can be many, many things. They are leaders who carry ethics, who live by intuition, and who are guided by the divine. Now, this makes them unique because they are right-brained leaders. And in many ways, most of our ministers also are right-brained leaders. We are coming from the creative side of our mind. Sometimes the reason that we come to the business mastermind is because we're right-brained leaders and we need to think about the left-brain stuff. We have to think about all the kind of practicalities that we need to know. So you're looking for people in your community who are like you. You're looking for people who have an objective to do good work, who don't always get paid as much as they want to get paid, who are not always the best marketers, but gosh, the work that they do is touching people's lives. Here's the thing, they are culture shifters. They are people who will look for new ways to do things so that they can continue to do the good that they're doing in the world. And we have an opportunity through our spiritual centers to support them and to have them support us. We very rarely take that opportunity because we're very focused only on what it is that we're doing. So why does it matter that we empower them? It matters because it honors what we are trying to bring forth in them. So when we do our work every Sunday and we talk to people, we are calling the indwelling divine forward in them. We are bringing that to the surface through all the ways that we teach. And we are supporting them in how they apply that in their family. We're supporting them in how they apply that in their volunteer work. We're saying we support them in how they apply that in their business, but we really don't offer much for them that actually talks about that really talks about how you can take a spiritually centered business out into a world that feels upside down and sideways right now and make a difference with it. And we have the opportunity to do that. It's an integrating process that brings faith and daily life together. And isn't that what we're really hoping that they do? That they will take what they learn out, and it supports maturity around their financial consciousness. One of the things that is unique about what we do at Unity is that we actually talk about prosperity, abundance, the substance underneath our life, the available resource that is the divine moving through us. So we have the opportunity to take that into a business-oriented conversation, but we don't think about it that way. And it transforms businesses beyond the walls of our ministry. It allows people to think differently, whether they are consciously in spiritual business or we're just talking about the spirituality of business. We are impacting how people do their work in the world. And that really does matter when you think about how many hours a week our people spend working. Now, I realize we all have a lot of gray hair in our community, and we may think that those people are not working and might not have an interest in this, but how many of you have had someone in your community say, I work harder since I retired than I did beforehand? Right? There are lots of places in the world that people are involved. And when we begin to actually address ethical business, spiritual business, integrative business, collaborative business, we start making changes in an area of life that is really influential on what our life experience is. So it matters in community because we begin to create the foundation for ethical business and stability. We begin to really talk about what ethical business is and what it means when you're a spiritual person who takes these principles that we teach out into your day-to-day mundane life. We develop spirit-led leaders who influence the workplace culture, who actually are teaching and training. They may not say, I'm teaching unity principles, but they are living unity principles in the way that they do things, and that matters. We also expand creativity and healing in our communities, and we need that right now. And our spiritual centers become known not just as a catalyst for this kind of thinking, but also as innovative centers who are addressing all of life. And I can't speak for all of you, but I can say for myself, I have so many times had people speak up and thank me when I speak to something that is relevant to the life they live. So how relevant is their daily workplace? How relevant is how they take their spirituality out into that? We are not proselytizers. We do not take the message out and say, this is the way. This is how we do things. So the language for this is different than what other churches might put in the workplace. But other churches are putting things in the workplace. And we, as a rule, are not. So if the people who are participating in our communities are not prepared to speak to their own ethics, values, and principles, if they're not prepared to speak to that, their chances are they're feeling a little bombarded if they have someone who's better prepared for it in their communities. So why does this matter to our spiritual centers? It matters because our members are walking into a room where there's a lot of influence about being commissioned, right? I am commissioned to go and save your soul. Our folks don't know how to live into what it is they're doing on Sunday at church when they get to work. How to speak to the ethic of stepping in an authentic way, opening the conversation with truth. We use that capital T truth word a lot when we're teaching, but we don't use the small t truth word, right? So small t truth is the authentic voice. What you really know up until this moment is true for you. Being able to have that voice empowered in us to speak to our authentic experience of life, of work, of world really matters in the workplace. It also, relevance for us brings people back. If what we're teaching in our spiritual centers is relevant to the life that they're leading, then they're going to keep coming back because we're giving them real tools and we're giving them real language and we're giving them the support that allows them to know they are making a difference. So one of the things that we all know is the frequency of a person. If they never open their mouth, the frequency they hold, their ability to be peace, their ability to be love, their ability to be centered, grounded, will affect their environment. Their ability to take what we learn into the workplace and to speak to them about things like self-regulation and centeredness and groundedness and stillness and pause. All of those things are tools that they can use in the stressful world that they're managing right now, especially at their workplace. So if they're getting those tools, they're going to come back because those tools are helping them. On a day-to-day basis, what they're doing is helping them. And it's giving our members the capacity to grow because we're not just talking about it on Sunday morning, we're teaching application. How do you take this out into the world? So you can see that there's two different groups probably three different groups in your community. There are your volunteers who are out in the community doing work. And then there are your spiritual teachers who are actually engaged spiritually in spiritual work. And then there are your people who would not call themselves spiritual teachers in any way, shape, or form, but are living out in the world, holding a frequency, teaching by their example, being who you've taught them to be. If we never talk about the business place, if we never talk about the application of this out in the business place, because we don't want to talk about how you make your money and how you do your spirituality in the same breath, right? We don't want to talk about that. If we never do that, we don't give them the tools they need to apply. And because business bridges outreach. So especially for those people in our communities who are spiritual educators, spiritual practitioners, who are out doing this work in the community, they are always with people who are looking for deeper spiritual connection. That is the clientele they're reaching. Are we giving them the language and the understanding to see why they would invite those people to come and check out our Unity centers? Because they are interacting with people who would have an interest in what we're doing. And if we invite them in to teach, if we invite them to speak, if we invite them, make them visible in our community, they are more likely to bring in people who would have an interest. So Do you remember when we used to do years ago, maybe you guys still do it, the spiritual gifts thing? Or we'd run the whole community through and figure out what their spiritual gifts are so we could figure out where they should volunteer and what they should do. Did any of you guys do that? Yeah. It's an interesting thing to work with your community to figure out what their gifts are. But your community is full of amazing gifts. And when you begin to explore what the gifts are that people bring and actually find out, then you have a way of applying them both in the walls and outside the walls. You also have a way to say publicly, I know that we have people who are spiritually gifted here, people who are business gifted here. I would like to know more about you. I would like to know what gifts you believe that you bring to this community, because we might be in need of those gifts and you don't even know it. So the invitation is there to put out a one sheet on a Sunday morning, put it on the chairs, let them fill it out. Really look at it and see what people think they are doing and what you think their gifts are, and then begin to cultivate those gifts. Because our world is really different right now. People coming to our spiritual centers, especially if they are in the younger generations, they're not coming for the talking head. They're coming for connection. They're coming for safety. They're coming for inspiration. They're coming for so much more than, I shouldn't say they're not coming for what we have to say, because we have something powerful and inspiring to say, but that's not all they're coming for. They're coming for more. And I believe that we probably would all say, well, they've always been coming for more. That's true. But the younger generations are less interested in authority and more interested in impact. How are we impacting the world that they live in? How can they take what we teach and use it to impact the world? It's just what they're here to do. And each generation, as we come in, comes in with different gifts, different things that we need to offer into the world. Right now, when we look at our millennials and our Gen Zs, they are here for impact. They are going to shift the consciousness of the world. They are going to shift the culture. And they are looking for tools and processes and connections and collaborations that will allow them to do that. So when we begin to actively look for, pull forward, cultivate the gifts in our community, we are giving them what they need. We are equipping them with the day-to-day practical support that they need to be brave enough to do this, because they're not sure. They're still young. And they need more support to do their good work. We are also bringing that work forward and saying, take this work out into the world. Right now, our communities are needed as much as we're needed. We are needed to be there on Sundays and throughout the week to support our communities. But for the world right now, with everything that's going on, no matter where you sit in it, the people who have learned what you teach, they are needed in the world. Being able to go out and live from that and carry the frequency of what you teach into the world, that is so needed right now. Are you empowering your people to be that important? Are we saying to them, listen, you guys, some of you have been here 20 years, some of you have been here 10, some of you have been here 2. You are not here by accident. You are here with a powerful ability to be the presence of peace, to be the presence of love, to be the presence of healing, to be the presence of stability, because all these tools that you've been picking up, that's what they give you. So are we empowering our people to go forward in that way? And are we connecting members so that they can do it? Because what happens is our younger members, when they're connected with our older members, get some natural mentoring. And our older members, when they're connected with our younger members, don't feel so old. They learn new things. They feel timely. They have an interest. And those groups will come together and start to look for what they can do together, how they can support each other. But we have to make that happen. We have to create those connections, and we have to have purpose for creating them. Because just putting them all together in fellowship hall on Sunday morning doesn't do it, does it? They sit with their little groups and they don't necessarily collaborate. So how can we step more deeply into that? They are facing guilt around earning money. The older community is facing guilt because they don't have as much to give as they did when they were in the workforce. Those that are still in the workforce are facing guilt. That your boomers are facing guilt because society is telling them you're supposed to get out of the job so the younger people can come in, but they can't yet. The millennials are facing guilt because they don't make enough money. There's not enough in the world right now in that age group for them to be able to do all the things they're supposed to be able to do. They're getting married. They're having kids. They want to buy a house. They want a newer car. They need all those things to take care of their families. And they're facing guilt because they can't make enough money to do it. A lot of them are living at home because that's how they're going to be able to make it in the world. And the younger ones, the Gen Zs, just aren't there yet. They're just not skilled enough in their chosen fields to be making enough money to live on. So many of them are still getting household support from families or having to work 2 or 3 jobs to be able to make it work. So guilt around money is a big deal. How are we taking away guilt and saying the world is hard right now? We need to collaborate around our funds, around our ways of living, around all of these things. And how amazing is it that we can do that? How amazing is it that we have the opportunity to shift culture in that way, because we're a very individuated culture. And right now our culture is having to move back towards deeper connection with one another and more mutual support. We as spiritual community, for very good reason, are afraid of appearing commercial. We can't do that. We can't be the place that always talks about making more money. We can't be the place that always talks about the business of the business we're in. But if you've been with me for any length of time, you know that there are 2 things that I speak to often here. One is minister is your title and not your first name. This is what you do for a living. And while it may be something that you do with the full complement of your skills and every cell in your body is committed to, it is still your job, not who you are. And your spiritual center is a business. And without good business practices, it doesn't succeed. This is true for everyone in your community. They are all engaged in some kind of business practice, even if their business practice is interactive with the money that they get from Social Security, from the government, from the work they used to do. It still is related to business. And there is a place for us to talk about that, to talk about the underpinnings of how we survive as humanity, how the work that we do in the world contributes, both in a good way and sometimes in a not so good way. It's a really big subject right now, because economy is a big subject right now, because safety is a big subject right now, because school is a big subject right now. There are so many ways that this is pushed. And for us to find a way of speaking about the commercial world and being able to explain that we know a bit about it, because our spirituality is also foundationed in the business world. And that's important. We have lots of young people who feel isolated and lacking in membership, and we have lots of wisdom we have lots of gray hair, don't we? Lots of wisdom in our spiritual communities. And the opportunity to match those mentors with young people helps them get over imposter syndrome so that they can step out fully from their spiritual self and bring the wholeness of who they are into the world. And that integration really matters, because we don't have 2 lives. We have one. And all of these aspects, business, spirituality, parenting, all of that stuff is part of the same world. We want to help them get over their imposter syndrome and understand that the indwelling divine is working through them, and that they may feel inspiration and contribute in the world in a way that they don't feel fully prepared to do. But here's another thing that I want you to think about. These people that we're in service to, they chose to come right now to this world for this time. Do we believe for a moment that Spirit sent them unprepared? No. They are bringing forth the indwelling divine in a way that looks different from how we might do it, because they came to bring forth something new. And they have inspiration and ideas and things coming from them that, unless we support that and speak to it and encourage it, imposter syndrome gets in the way of their bringing forward. So you might be thinking, oh, I've had like 3 people who are young enough to care about this. What if those 3 people are yours? Those 3 people are yours to inspire, to really understand that they have great ideas. They have something to offer that the next generation above them doesn't have. How will you bring that out in them? How will you encourage them? What happens for them is they either overprice or they underprice. They bring their services out into the world and they price themselves right out of the market, or they overprice or they underprice themselves because they don't have the confidence. Those are things that we can address by having classes for young entrepreneurs, by having a class for spiritual entrepreneurs that really talks about that. You are a spiritual entrepreneur. How can we apply our unity principles to what you're doing and help support you in what you're doing? How do we help them find their voice? So we have to reframe prosperity in the way that we do, which is circulation and sustainability. We have to teach that in particular to those people in the spiritual world right now. And we have to help them understand that money amplifies values. That when you are successful at something, you are amplifying the values that we want the world to have right now. So you have to be able to make a living to do this. You have to be able to find a way to be out there in the world doing it. And that ethical exchange reflects integrity. When we respond ethically, when we learn how to say, gee, I'm not prepared to offer that service yet. I will be in 6 months, rather than saying, yeah, I can do that. I don't really know how I'm going to do it, but I'll do it. We have to teach those things. And we also have to understand for ourselves that when we support people in the business world, young people, but all people, when we support that, we support healthy earning that then becomes strengthened giving. So everybody does better because we are in this conversation, because we are actually inviting people who are hidden, because you're the minister and they don't want to tell you they're doing spiritual healing, because what if you don't think they do it right? When we encourage them to come forward and then we support them and we give them real training, we give them real information, real how do you apply these principles in your work world, they are able to give in a new way back into the community. And that matters for us because our business needs are met as well as theirs. And our need for abundance is met, right? Our understanding and reaffirmation that there is enough for everything and everyone. So here are some just really simple things that you can do. One is to do a marketplace blessing. That means take a time in your ceremony where you bless the people who are in the working world, where you actually talk about how important the good work they're doing in the world is and how they take the frequency and love of this community out and offer blessings on their work. That the work that you're doing is successful, that the work that you're doing is impactful, that the work that you're doing in the world is not only shifting you on an economic level, but is shifting our culture in the best of ways. That's a prayer we don't offer very often. but it's absolutely available to us in our prayer repertoire that we bless the marketplace. To in your e-blast, to if you have people who are willing to do a member business spotlight. So and so runs a garage, so and so runs a this, so and so does that. Do we know how to do business with one another? No, because we don't necessarily know who we've got. We don't even know. Somebody comes to us and goes, do we have a dentist in our congregation? Geez, I don't know. I'm not sure. Ask the administrator, maybe they know. We don't even know what our people do. So to create added prosperity by supporting each other in the businesses that we have, if your dental office is getting clients from your church because somebody is saying, oh yeah, we have a dentist, do you think they want to show up on Sunday and meet more people? Yes, they do, because it serves them on every level of their being, in their business as well as in their spiritual growth. This entrepreneurial workshop idea is one I really hope that you'll think about. How can you support people who are trying to apply unity principles in their workplace? You can call it whatever you want to call it. But how do we apply these things that are so important? How do we apply stillness and pause and prayer and meditation and action and the knowingness that we carry within us divine inspiration the world is waiting for? How do we teach those things as applies in business? How do we teach people to trust their intuitive sense in the business world when what they've been taught is that it's all about the numbers on the bottom line? How do we give them the other side so that the two sides of their brain are working together? That whole ability to think right brain, left brain, even though science has completely poo-pooed that whole idea. We know what we're talking about. There are different ways of thinking. How do we bring more right brain thinking into a very left brain environment so that these tools can be used in an integrative way? Do you have a skills directory? If you don't want to do a business spotlight in your newsletter, do you have a notebook in your lobby that people can put their business card in? Just give me a business card. Or here's a little square piece of paper you can write on there. Sherry does maid service, whatever it is. Do you have a way for people in your community? You could put it up on a bulletin board. You could put some of those little square plastic things that you can slide business cards in on your bulletin board. What does our community do? It does all of these things so that people can support each other professionally. And you can offer mentorship circles. If you don't feel prepared or have the time or the interest to do an entrepreneurial class, talk to the people that you have in your community who are business people. We all know some of those, and see if they would be willing to do a little training with you on the application of principles, and then make some mentoring available. If you are starting a new business, you're running a spiritual business, you're coming into a new business idea and you would like to mentor, we do have some great mentors in our community. Their information is on the bulletin board. You can email them. Again, a great way to get wise people with young, enthusiastic, innovative people working together. So when you get together in your entrepreneurial circle, whatever you decide to call that, should you decide to do it, you want to do some grounding and intention setting to start. You want to have somebody tell the story of their spiritual business so you can get to know each other. What's been good about it? What's been hard about it? How long have you been doing it? Then you want to offer a teaching segment, and your teaching segment is it's the same 20 minutes you do on a Sunday morning, 30 minutes, 20 minutes, however long it goes. But you're teaching from principle into the business world. And then you want to offer breakout sessions if you have enough people, or conversation, guided conversation amongst them, so that they can exchange ideas, because that again builds strength in community. And offer a prayer that empowers them to take their wisdom out into the world, that reminds them that they have wisdom they don't even know yet, that the divine working through them means more than just making them good people. It means taking what they know and inspiring other people with it. There are some ethical guardrails that I want you to keep in mind. And just as a side note, I know some of you are taking really copious notes. I always send these slides with the video to Unity South Central Region. So when you go onto when you go into the archives, this video, this slide set is downloaded there. You can actually download these slides. You can use them again with your board or in your own training, and feel free to make the adjustments that make them work for you. I do them for you so that you have these available to you. We don't want any pressure selling in our sacred space, right? We're not asking you to come in and tell everybody what you do every time you come in the door. We're looking for ways to subtly but solidly support each other in the work that we do, and to subtly but solidly take our teachings into those environments. So we need clear communication guidelines around, you can put your business card up here, but this is not a place for flyers. You can put 2 business cards in here. When one is gone, you can put another one in here. Whatever you decide you're going to do, you're not looking, this entrepreneurial gathering is to support business efforts. It's not to sell your wares. So you don't want your Tupperware lady setting up her Tupperware in the lobby, right? But it's okay to let people know that if you're looking for Tupperware, somebody has it. I didn't even know Tupperware was still out there until recently. Somebody at one of the spiritual centers brought me a catalog. I was like, oh, I didn't even know Tupperware was still out there. Transparency and promotion. So you can't pick one person as better than the other as the minister. So if you're going to speak to business, then you have to speak to anybody's business. And you have to be able to say something like, hey, if we're going to let somebody know every week about what you guys do. If you'd like to be on that list, put your name here and I'll speak to what you do when it comes your turn. So you have to have transparent ways of doing what you do. And you have to speak to everyone in your circle about what we do in any circle, which is what we speak to in here is confidential. You might speak to a real problem you're having with a bookkeeper, and you don't know that the bookkeeper isn't somebody else's next door neighbor. So we still have to protect confidentiality in the arenas where we bring people over and ask them to vulnerably risk talking about what's really going on in their lives. Those upfront agreements about confidentiality, about respecting and not cross-talking, about allowing people to be vulnerable and also being good listeners. All of those really matter. And we have to always center our community in well-being. And that can be difficult no matter what it is, whether we're teaching about relationships, we're teaching about grief, we're teaching about abundance, we're teaching about business. We are coming back around to well-being, which means to balance, to centeredness, to understanding that despite the fact that we see a lot we can focus on in the negative aspects of life right now, that there are so many really great, amazing things happening in life. And one of the big challenges ahead of us as ministers right now is to hold some perspective on balance and be able to speak to that balance, be able to point out the things that are not running in the headlines and that they're not going to see on social media. And as a side note to that, I encourage you all to encourage people to cultivate and be very careful about their social media, because you can X out in the corner of any social media post and still teach the algorithm you don't want to see that. And when you do, it is possible to cultivate social media that is more supportive, more positive, more beneficial. We are addicted to the story. So if we don't take the time to cultivate, that's the word I was looking for, cultivate the social media feed that we want, we won't get it. But it is something for us to talk to our folks about because that cultivation really helps. So how do you know if you're successful when you're doing all of this? Because you start to see a visible network of spiritual entrepreneurs who you can see in your community. You start to know who does what and how they're doing it and what they're doing it for. And you start to see collaborations and referrals showing up. You start to see the interaction. You start to hear people saying, oh my gosh, I had a massage with so-and-so. It was amazing. Oh, that's good to know. I didn't even know they were a massage therapist. Thanks for letting me know. You start to see that. Your members start being the kind of credibility and confidence reporting process, and you don't have to worry about doing that because you have connected people. The same will be true if something isn't good. People will say, yeah, I went to see her, but it wasn't as good as I was hoping. That will happen. Those things, that's how it works in business. You will have this kind of repeatable way. It's hard to explain, but there's a rhythm to support. There's a way that people show up for each other, excel at what they're doing and show up for each other and excel and show up and excel. And that is a mentorship loop that gets passed down. A mentor teaches something to someone, it works for them, they teach it to the next person. You start to see that kind of cyclical rhythm happen. And you start to change the culture of your community toward empowered purpose. You'll start to hear conversation and understand in your community that you are empowering people in a way that takes what you teach really out into their 9 to 5 or 10 to 6 or whatever it is, actually really moves that empowerment you're giving them into practical and spiritual purpose. And that integration gives people a sense that they are whole. It gives them a sense that Sunday morning matters in their whole life, not just what happens on Sunday because it feels good that day and they had a crummy week. But it gives them the ability to make that whole spiritual experience they're having circular. What am I giving into the world? What am I receiving from the world? How am I prosperous because I am circulating all that comes to me, both in the nature of wisdom, in the nature of finance, in the nature of mentorship, in the nature of collaboration, all of that. So this is a different thing to talk about in this environment. It's a really different thing because traditional church environment does not cross a line. But in today's world, where business is where so much of our focus is, this line matters. This is a line that we put in place. And everything that you're teaching in your spiritual center makes a difference in the real world, right? And the world is very real. Have you noticed? It's very real right now. So I just want to encourage you to think about this. And if you walk away from this particular gathering and go, no way, I'm not doing that, that's okay. You will have thought about it. What I love about Unity is that we can put an idea out on the table and we all get to think about it and decide if we want to pick it up or not. And I want to encourage you to think about how you adapt what you heard today to what feels comfortable for you. Because we have responsibility beyond the walls of our congregation. We have responsibility to help people apply what we teach in the most practical and meaningful way. And right now, the world needs everyone who's coming into our centers on Sunday morning to walk out feeling purpose-driven, to take what we know and what we teach into a hurting world and make the world a little bit better by doing that. And this is one of the ways that we can do that. So I'm going to leave you to thinking about it between now and our next gathering. And then when we gather together the middle of the month, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to know where you are in this and what pieces you might want to adapt. And of course, our middle of the month meeting is always, thank you, Trish, I will tell you about that. Our middle of the month meeting is always open conversation and is not recorded because it's meant to be private space for ministers to talk, to connect with one another. So you can bring any subject into that meeting, and I hope that you will. Yes, Trish, thank you for reminding me. Steady in the Storm starts again next Tuesday at noon 12:30. I have to look at the time. You will get an announcement about it if you're on the email list. And if you're not, then please go to the region, go to unitysouthcentral.org, go to resources, drop down to Steady in the Storm and register. And then you'll get an announcement. So Steady in the Storm, if you were not in part one, is a once a month meeting to provide tools related to self-regulation, to provide a safe space. We do not record. The only people who get the recording, we do record, but the only people that get the recording are those who register for the class. We talk about what it's like to be leading in the world that we're living in right now. And it's a place where we can have our own hearts heard and where we can be together and where we can talk about the tools that help us in a time when there's a lot of pull on us to be still and calm and centered. And that can be really difficult because we're personally being affected by what's going on in the world as well. So that is the second Tuesday of every month. It'll be March 10th. I think we did it at 12:30 Central Time, but I'm going to look and I will send it out. I will ask Elaine to put it in the note with the recording for this class so that you guys get it. And we'll look forward. In fact, you guys are already registered here. I'll just make sure she sends it to everybody who's on this list as well. And that will help us. If you did not make the first 6 sessions, that's okay. These are independent freestanding sessions. And when you're registered, you will have access to the page that has all the previous recordings as well. So you can go back to that. Okay? Yes, ma'am. Laura.
Hi, can you hear me? You can hear
I
me.
can. Yeah.
Yeah. Regarding credit
Mhm.
for continuing education for this class, Trish asked about this, and for the Steady in the Storm. Can you speak to that?
You just put them when you do your minister's report. You just write on your minister's report which classes you took. These classes are approved for CEU credit. So all you have to do is, and you can, if you don't write them down, you can go back and look and go, I took that one, I didn't take that one, I took that one. But most especially if you haven't taken them, if you don't have them, you can go back in and watch them, which is really helpful. And that's why all of that stuff is archived, so that it's available to you to use with your boards and for your own training purposes, and also available for you for your CEUs.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, David.
I would just add, for anyone who hasn't done Steady in the Storm, the thing I love most about it is it's experiential. You know, it's not just a lecture or information, it's involvement. Serge? So I highly recommend it.
Yeah, thank you, my friend. It's an entirely different feeling to be in that group. It's a place where we get to come in our vulnerability and we get to pick up some tools, and we have some breakout rooms and some time to talk with one another and some ways of moving through. And I feel really honored that after we did the first one, it was requested that we do the second one, that we come back and do it again. So I feel really honored to hold that space for everyone and to be able to come together with all of you in that way. So thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for the really amazing and remarkable work you're doing in the world. I think it takes a minister to know a minister. You know, like most people, no matter how close they are to us, don't understand all the things that we carry and all the work that we do and what it takes to be in this position. And I honor the good work that you do. I honor the way you bring your hearts into this work. And I really deeply honor and love that we are privileged enough to have the opportunity to have some influence in a time when influence is so needed. So I wish you the best in your work. God bless you inside and outside, and any way you experience God, be blessed. And I will see you in a couple of weeks or next week if you come to Study in the Storm. Have a great day.